minutes.
And I have a 10 a.m. that I need to be at as well. So
Okay. Okay. So we're going to zoom through this, pardon the pun, relatively quickly here. Buongiorno, Anne-Marie, actually. How was your trip?
it was fantastic. Yeah. Very special trip, being able to spend that time with our oldest daughter and celebrating her accomplishments, with law school and the bar. And so it was really neat watching my husband, as an architect, to be immersed in, that type of ancient architecture. He was in awe of a lot of the places we saw. So it was pretty fun.
Now, our son was a classics minor, and then every time he or we went to Europe, etc., all he did is marvel just at the architecture and the art. So actually, it was anthropology and archaeology minor, and he was just absolutely in awe.
Yeah, it was truly amazing. And we had some really neat experiences, like in Pompeii. Our guide was an archaeologist who actually was part of, and is still part of excavating, Pompeii. It was really neat, just that perspective. And he, was showing us, photographs of how it was found and what it originally looked like, as opposed to how they're displaying it now for people to see. So that was really cool.
Yep. For anyone who is watching on BCTV right now, we are live. At this point, we are waiting for a fourth member to come as to achieve our quorum, and I can't convene the meeting until we get a quorum together. So we'll give him a couple of minutes, and then I'll start calling him, I guess. Just for anybody watching live, we have two openings on the committee. Feel free to talk to any member of the committee to submit a talent form to the select board, and that will certainly be considered presumably very quickly. But right now, our board is 7, our quorum is 4, and at this moment we have 3 members on the call. So we cannot conduct any business at all until
John's on his way in.
Okay. There we go. Okay. Good morning. Okay, it is now 9:01. We have a quorum right now, and at least we're Jed, if you could begin recording, just to get a recording back to Wendy quicker than perhaps BCTV can get their recording up, if that's okay.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah.
Let me just find the tool. Okay. I'm gonna send a request to somebody.
It's probably to Emmer.
Yeah,
Maybe
it's been
Emmer.
granted.
Recording in progress.
There we go.
Good, we're live. Okay, good morning, everybody. This is a live meeting and a recording of it, of the Cable, Internet, and Telecommunications Advisory Committee to the Select Board. And today is the 26th of September, and moving towards October very quickly. Just to take attendance, right now we have me, the chair, Robert Dwyer, Jed Johnson, the vice chair. Our clerk secretary, Wendy Howland, is absent because of a conflicting appointment. And we have members Brian McCarter and John Frank. We did have John Frank. And he has dropped off. So unfortunately, I've got to pause the meeting for a bit until John comes back on. I don't know where he went. Clearly, I think he's trying to get in. Just for anecdotal information, I had another committee meeting crash that was chaired by somebody who lives over on Patuxent when his internet service crashed completely. And he went outside and tried to mine the sky to try to get a Verizon signal so if he could use a hotspot to try to do all of this. And then finally we just gave up. Okay. Anne-Marie, you said that John had communicated with you that he was on, or why didn't I see him originally?
He came on briefly and then he disappeared. So I don't, oh, there he's coming back now. He's trying to connect with audio.
Okay,
I think he's in.
let's confirm. I don't see a microphone even off for him. John, if you can, we do not hear you. We do not see a microphone on the participants list. And your video is off. Can you turn your video on and just give some kind of a hand signal that you can hear at least? I'm reluctant to continue until we know we have a good connection. Okay, his microphone just came on. John, can you turn one of these on and just confirm that you can hear us or see us? Mm-hmm. John. Again, I'm reluctant to go forward until we have some kind of a confirmation that that John can participate. Anne Marie, I presume that's the right thing to do here.
It is. He's off again. So
Yeah, he's gone again.
He
Oh boy.
hasn't fully come into the meeting yet.
Right. Okay. Well, again, I'm
He's
pausing the
trying.
meeting. I'm pausing the meeting. He's doing what he can.
There he is.
Got me now? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, finally, my for some reason my little Logitech device went berserk this morning, and I had to do some gyrations here and unplug it and replug it again so the computer could find it. It couldn't find it. So yes, I've been
Okay.
here the whole time. Okay.
Okay. Once again, so you're the last member in attendance, and you make the quorum. Again, our secretary clerk is absent because of a conflict, and we're recording this meeting right now so that she can get the recording and then come up with some minutes from that, if everybody's okay with that. Okay. Once again, I don't see any other participants on. Everybody, if you're watching on TV, you're invited to participate. The Zoom login information is on the Bourne calendar under today's date under our agenda. So feel free to sign on. We do not have a telephone call in, as I was asked by somebody at a off time one time. The next thing I want to do is review and approve the minutes from our last meeting on September 12th. So I'm not going to pull those up. I did not have any comments. Did anyone else have comments?
I read them. They looked good to me.
Yeah, let me find them. There is also an executive summary, which we were going to pilot to see if it's if we can send that to the select board for kind of Cliff Notes reading of you know, what tend to be our long and involved minutes of our long and involved discussions about some of these things.
Yeah, that's that's on the agenda further down, Bob.
Okay, but just to let you know, it's there if you haven't downloaded it. Okay, with that, if nobody has any comments, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
John seconds.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll motion.
Okay. Okay, Jed motions, John seconds. With that, I'm going to do a roll call vote for our extensive roll today. Brian.
Aye.
Okay. Jed.
Aye.
John.
Aye.
Okay, and me, Bob, the chair, votes aye also. Okay. Anne Marie, is there any public correspondence at all?
There was not.
Okay. First, just an apology for something that should have gone into public correspondence. I was supposed to have sent an email around to the select board, giving them a heads up that we may be submitting a letter for them to approve and then send out to MBI with a number of CCs discussing the issues we're having with the challenge process. I've had until it was kind of just resolved recently. I've had helping a family and family members in Falmouth deal with an end of life urgent situation. So that completely consumed it, and I frankly forgot about sending that email. But I did send an email off to MJ and with a copy to Anne Marie, giving her heads up that this may go forward. And she says, just submit it when it's ready, and they'll figure out how to when and how to review this in the select board. So again, apologies for that. Jed, I would have asked you to do it, but I was in such a panic. I kind of completely lost track of everything over that last week, the last 2 weeks since then. The situation, just to let you know, resolved itself. My cousin in Falmouth died, so it was the immediate financial crisis of paying for $16,000 a month in nursing home care kind of disappeared.
Ooh.
Anyway, yeah. Moving on, just let's discuss where we are with the bead challenge. I forwarded some email correspondence back and forth that started with an email that I had sent to as an individual to MBI, just pointing out that we had a number of issues and we needed those clarified. Just to a quick recap, the biggest issue is that the incumbent ISPs, both in Bourne and apparently around the state, are submitting hundreds of the rebuttals to CAIs and also to speed challenges. And at least based on the information that's available on the databases, et cetera, there's no evidence that they were actually submitting all of the supporting data that they needed to, as required by MBI's and NTIA's own rules. And we have been concerned that this whole process is not particularly transparent. We've been copying Senator Moran and her aide on this, and her aide managed to call MBI or contact MBI and got some clarification out, which you can read in those emails. They've been kind of filtering in as late as just the other day. But given that none of this was coming in, it was too satisfactory. Brian, with some help, started preparing, a letter to question this whole process to MBI with a lot of citations of evidence, an unbelievable number of citations of evidence. Brian, kudos to you for digging all of this stuff out. And I can't, it's extremely arcane for me, and I can't pretend to understand all of it.
You said find something, and I went digging, and there was actually more justification than we expected when you started combing through the federal documents. It appears at least the federal government has tried to do this right in the past before.
Okay, Brian, John, before your question, Brian, would you like to amplify on my highly condensed summary of where we are right now?
Sure. Well, the CAIs is easier to explain, so maybe start there. MBI's evidence guideline listed one and only one allowed evidence, and that was the provider website. For the rebuttals we're facing with the CAI's code type G, only one option is provider website. So it's very easy to back into what the provider submitted. Their only website that could support said position would be their nutrition labels, the FCC nutrition labels, which are incorrectly stating we have 10 gig fiber everywhere in town. And when you drill into the fine print of those, it says survey required, not available for everyone. So if you're not reading the size 6 text, you realize that completely invalidates the page altogether. So it shouldn't have been accepted. with no further review because it was MBI's rules alone. And it, as far as BEAD overall, you need to be submitting location-specific information, not any sort of generalized statement, which, you know, just saying a survey is required and some people aren't going to qualify amounts to a generalized statement and not a location-specific info. They would have needed to submit the surveys for that site to become valid. So all of those challenges should have been tossed immediately without any, didn't even need a lawyer to toss that. You could just read the page and see that it didn't make any sense and it didn't count. Speed tests are a little harder since you've got to go from, so MBI basically took the NTIA model challenge, and then the NTIA model challenge in the footnotes references previous programs and FCC rulings and other things that they've done. And it appears that the references are trying to point out some attempt to avoid cherry-picked data. So
Recording
previous
stopped.
rulings. Oop, recording stopped. Is everything okay?
Recording in progress.
Oh, it just came back in.
I know.
So
Okay.
it looks like, and you know, I'm not a lawyer, and we need a lawyer that knows the FCC well, how one ruling goes to the next ruling to the next program. But it appears to indicate that there's two grounds to challenge the speed tests. One, you're supposed to have independent verification that the data is accurate. And two, it may be required to prove it wasn't cherry picked.
They say that right in there. They tell you that you have to do it by a certain number of minutes and you have to increment the minutes. It was right in your letter. It basically says you can't cherry pick it. You can't do the same time constantly, that you have to do it and then do it again and again and again.
And it's hard to follow because it's like, okay, we go MBI cites BEAD NOFO federal. BEAD NOFO federal in the footnote cites FCC or cites another program, and that program then cites the FCC performance order on how you're supposed to do this kind of stuff. And you know, this is so minutia of a very specific kind of law that I've already left a voicemail for Gigi Sohn and ask her, how do FCC orders flow to next programs? And I'm waiting to hear back.
Okay.
But yeah, incredibly dense, incredibly hard to follow, a lot of citations. I am more confident the CAIs are complete. Our position for the CAIs, I think, is solid. And it seems like there's grounds to begin a challenge of the speed data. But the CAI is crystal clear that MBI has made a mistake in accepting those.
Yeah, that what I was going to say is what I gathered from your letter and reading all that was that they basically haven't come close to meeting the legal burden of proof. That it's quite the opposite. And when you see it, when you specifically point out that it's a site survey necessary for 1 gig service, and we know they haven't done a site survey, and then you know,
and like this was hard to find because it's like I didn't know off the top of my head that the only legal evidence was a website. Like I had to go and reread the documents like 12 times to spot that under this circumstances, that is the only, there's no ambiguity. This is the only grounds. So this wasn't easy. And so I can see how many people missed this. I can see how even MBI staff missed this.
A question.
Yeah.
A question for everybody, just to throw out, and I do not have the answer. But is it possible that MBI just blindly logged in, and I won't say accepted, but blindly logged in any rebuttal that they took that came in prior to the August 26th deadline, and they're looking at them now during the 2-month adjudication period, and they will make their decisions afterwards. I don't see any,
but they put us through the ringer for every single challenge. So if they did that, that means the process isn't fair.
Well, that's not what they're supposed to do according. But yes, you're correct. I mean, basically, what they're saying in their letter was the one that Brian got back was, "Oh yeah, well, this doesn't mean that we've said it's okay. We've just accepted this challenge. But what you're saying is correct, which is that based on the rules, right at the front end, they just like when a court says you're in the wrong jurisdiction, this is the same thing. But I have to tell you, having a little experience with FCC rules over the years, there are some ambiguities that well, many times when I've had to get them resolved, it's required either an FCC attorney or an FCC approved engineer to sit down and have a meeting with someone in person. And I got very involved with a very long-winded process where there were two rules that basically contradicted each other, and we had to finally our consulting engineer had lunch with the guy who was the head of the basically the oral broadcast unit and in charge of all radio stations, and he basically said, no, this is the way we interpret it. Because when you read it, you went, well, wait a minute, which way does it go? And so, and even then it's, then if you follow the industry, then it's subject to court challenges, and the FCC has been overturned, particularly recently, they've been overturned a number of times as they've tried to regulate certain industries. And right now they're trying to regulate certain cable industries and internet, and they get, every step of the way, someone says, well, Congress didn't give you permission to do that. So you know how that goes. You're in appeals court for years. So there is no, I wish I could say there was a direct answer, and I hope there is, but I wouldn't be surprised if the two rules in fact do conflict.
Yeah, the speed test seems more like one of those, because like when I'm reading these FCC cases, it's basically two parties disagree about a rule, and the FCC's settling it. They're like, one party thinks it's this, one thinks it's that. A bunch of other parties file a motion saying we believe it's this, and they kind of come to a conclusion. Who's right. So whereas the CAI one, that's in MBI's own documents if they're wrong. So MBI isn't following their own rules, never mind federal rules.
Right. Yes, exactly.
Okay, let's move on and just discuss the letter. My opinion, just as a board member here, not as the chair, is that this letter is too long and complex frankly for the select board to be able to read, appreciate, comment on it in a timely manner. I just all I'm going to get back, I think, from MJ is kind of frustration at how complex this is, and understanding that they are the sole decision maker about sending the letter, but they're not going to send a letter that they don't understand. Anne Marie, is that a correct reading? I'm just very
It
very
is.
careful.
I mean, obviously I've been with this committee long enough. I've sort of been schooled on a lot of the language and the process, and obviously the letter itself and understanding. But it's a lot of information, and I think if we can highlight what's most important, if we have what's our expected outcome of sending this letter, and work back from that, what is most important to express in the letter for what we want this outcome to be. Right? What's the end?
Well, the end goal is easy, and I do apologize how technical and long this is, but that's what it took to
Brian,
make the
but
case.
it's good for us. It's great for us, right?
Yeah, it needs a big redraft for sure.
I certainly value everything that's been written in this letter. You're on point with everything. But the big picture, like Bob said, is the select will be more inclined to say, what? What are we sending? Like what? Why? And there'll be a lot of shaking heads. So I think if we can highlight or express to the select board what the expected outcome is for sending this letter, and be on point in a more condensed way with the letter, I think we'll have a better success, even to the people that it's going to, right? In the constituencies that we're CCing it to as well. You have to think about, it's not just select board. We want to send this out to more than just MBI, and their understanding, same thing. If they can read this letter knowing, okay, here's the outcome, here's the expectation, and these are the reasons why.
you know, it would seem to me that based on the emails that got back, reading between the lines, MBI is saying that, gee, we've logged in these all of these rebuttals. We're in the process of this adjudication or whatever we call it, and having looked at them. And I think what we need to do is highlight, especially for the CAIs, which is a really simple case, you know, in 2 bullets. You know, we are going to rely on your representations in your emails that you're going to fastidiously apply your own rules in terms of reviewing the evidence submitted with each of these individual rebuttals. And for the CAIs, again, you've got to be have available, you know, symmetric 1 gig up and down can be installed within, what is it, 2 weeks, Brian? Something like that?
Generally, I think there's like a 10 or 14-day clock or something.
What? But
it has to, so actually with CAIs, it has to be available now.
Okay.
With CAIs, actually.
It
Has to be
so-
available, turn onable to like basically today.
Yeah, and then for the again, for the speed test rebuttals, you know, the non-cherry picking language that you just put in, and just condense that into a, you know, an extended bullet, but 1 paragraph each. And we look forward to, you know, finish and say, we look forward to MBI's careful and careful application of their own rules, and also the rules of NTIA and FCC, in reviewing the validity of each of the locations that have been challenged by the incumbents, both in Bourne and statewide. And, you know, basically saying, putting them on notice, we're watching. Okay, you know, I don't know what we do if they decide not to do that and they don't provide any evidence, but that's the next step. And just get that on record while the process is going on. And again, that's 1 page that, you know, somebody like Senator Moran's aide, who's been involved in this, can read back to the senator and say, look, this is what's going on, and this is a concern from 1 town about how the agency, what the agency needs to do here. And we don't say anything about what, you know, what our knowledge is, other than say for the CAIs, we reviewed these and we see no evidence that this is available. Presumably, your review of the data they submit will verify that. Who just put a hand up there? Somebody?
Yeah,
No.
Brian.
Yeah. But I mean, the point is that they shouldn't have even accepted it.
I don't think MBI is aware of their own rules.
Right.
That's the problem here.
Right.
I don't have any faith that they will abide by their own rules, given what I've seen them do, the mistakes I've seen them make, and the fact that they won't respond to just even basic questions right now about this that are being legitimately asked. So if we don't point out the rules that they're breaking, I don't know if they're aware of the mistake they're making.
That was my thought too, Brian. You know, like you said, you've delved into these documentations and language and literature and regulations or procedural processes. You've been, you know, 12 times, you said, before you really caught on to exactly what was being said. So, you know, I mean, in some ways, MBI could have been in the same situation. Do I think it's important to make them aware of it? Absolutely. And perhaps that will help aid them in realizing, okay, well, we got to put a little bit of a hold on this and reevaluate and reassess and slow down this process.
So how do we, maybe do we need like a 1-page, so clearly we need a 1-page cover letter, you know, executive summary of the content. And the question is, how do we attach the minutia in a way that people don't lose people, and or are they looking to skim over it if they don't care and want to just skip to the executive summary?
What we can do, Brian, my suggestion, and this is open for comment, is take all of your material and convert that into an end note, okay? And then you just uppercase A at the end of a a statement at the beginning, uppercase B, C, D, and E, et cetera, and then refer back to what you've done, broken it down into individual pieces.
Mhm.
And what that will do is point them to the details and make it very clear that we've gone diving way into the weeds in there in the FCC regulations, such as they are, or the FCC past rulemakings, and that we're going to hold them to the fire in terms of their fair adherence to an application to these rules. I just don't think I think the material you got is fabulous, but I think it's got to go in an appendix at the back of the letter, and that's something that frankly the people doing a high level read of this will flip through and then see, hey, there's 14 pages of appendices here. Holy crap! To be honest, okay.
I frankly thought I wouldn't find anything, and then when I realized there was something here and how much info was going to have to be put on the page, I was like almost overwhelmed. Like I knew this was going to be overwhelming, and this was the best I could do to get it to today's meeting. So,
well, again,
it definitely needs a redo.
So what Anne-Marie, I'd like to talk about schedule for this. There are 2 select board meetings between now and the end of October, and the town meeting. Well, or the end of October, or the end of the adjudication period, all of which kind of fall on the week of the 21st. And clearly, this isn't ready to go tomorrow to the select board, and it's not going to make it. So we would have to get something the 15th, 14th, 13th. We'd have to have something done by the 11th. Does that make sense?
Right, because our next meeting dates are October 1st and then the 15th.
Right. So
the one in between, I think, is a SOAR commissioners meeting. So
right. So we have to shoot for the meeting on the 15th.
Yeah.
Okay. And by then, the warrant, basically the warrant for the town meeting will have been put to bed. Right. So there's not going to be a whole lot of discussion about what the agenda
It'll probably
for the town.
be put to bed very shortly. Yeah. Within the next, by the first. Yeah.
Right. So again, so our challenge here is to get a redraft of this letter, and then get it in a position where we can footnote all of this stuff, and then get it back approved by this committee and then to the select board, which would be our next meeting is the I don't have a calendar in front of me. It's October 10th.
Yeah.
It would, and I will be out of town on that date. So if you want to move it.
Yeah, it would be the 10th.
But I'm leaving. I'll be out of town. So we could do something the week before, possibly maybe the Friday before or something.
I can make that.
Yeah, because the 3rd is a religious holiday for me.
Right.
But the 4th, I'm just looking at my calendar. I'm available. And that would be the Friday before, and we could meet then. I don't think it has to be. I mean, I think the letter itself has to be pretty plain and simple. I think the appendix has to be complex. But from what I was reading back again, what you and Brian sent out, and they're claiming that all the key people at MBI all reviewed this, and obviously, it's like what?
I'll be nice about my thoughts on that, but
I suspect some intern is the person who put all this stuff up.
So if we vote on the letter on the 10th, doesn't that give us plenty of time to get it to the select board for the meeting on the 15th?
Yes.
When does
yes.
I just can't be there to vote. So if you have a quorum.
Well, Wendy can be the 4th, right?
All right. Yeah. If Wendy's
right.
there,
I have to tell you, Jed, that's the meeting that I expect to be out of town, but I'll find my way to get to an internet connection. Or the difficulty is I'll be in West Virginia, and there'll be a contractor up on the roof, and the Starlink antenna will have been ripped down. So I've got to go find a library or something to participate in the meeting.
We might need
But,
to send this appendix to MBI ahead of that, because we need them to reject the speed challenges in Bourne and the CAI challenges in Bourne before the 18th. And if
well, it's
previous end dates have told me anything, it's better to be early than it is to be on the last day.
well, Brian, you can send that as an individual, okay? And just say, look, we've you know, break it down. We've identified the following rules here. You know, again, and just say, by the way, I'm submitting this to our committee, and it's going to be a letter. Is you know, I'm going to make a motion that that this with a cover letter be sent to you from the select board of Bourne. You know, and you can make a motion and say you're making a motion without having having to need the backup of the committee. Anne Marie, is that kosher to be? Is that going to be?
You know what? I think that's a fine line.
Yeah. Well, we've been communicating with MBI back and forth as individuals for a long time. I mean, they call an office hour, and we've got 24 hours notice for it. There's absolutely no way I could bring those before the committee and get approval to go there. So I've gone on as a private citizen. You know, I haven't identified myself as a SciTac member at all. And Brian's done the same. Just because the you know the moving parts on this are moving so quickly, there's no way to get the committee to approve it or the select board to approve this.
Right, but as a committee, we can't direct Brian to do something.
No, but he can say to them that he, as a member, is planning to submit this for consideration by SciTac and perhaps consideration for the by the select board to endorse and remind you that these rules apply and you have to apply them. You know, he's
Okay.
telling them that he's going to, as a board member, he's going to make a motion. It's not an approved motion. It's not something that's gone through the committee yet.
Okay.
And just say he, as an individual, did a lot of research and uncovered these the details of the rules that we believe are applicable here. Okay, and you know,
I've sent some of them already through Senator Moran's office to forward to MBI, and you know, Colin's sending it back, but Colin isn't. Colin doesn't have any weight as far as voting on what MBI does, so he's mostly just sharing information.
Okay. Well, again, I think that's a plan to go forward. And if we want to get this information in that letter, all the technical details, that we need to break that down into kind of manageable sections that are applicable to the CAI versus the speed test versus the area speed challenge, et cetera. And just remind them of what rules they have to apply with regard to accepting the validity of a rebuttal, and then just send that off to them. And I'll take the lead on writing a one-page cover letter on this, and with potentially a lot of drafting a one-page cover letter on this with a lot of references or endnotes, I guess you would call it, that can all be kind of stapled on the back of this. And I think the select board probably will just look at the language of the cover letter and frankly trust us about the minutia of all of the details that Brian has found way down in the weeds.
Yeah, I think
sound like
particularly the format, you know, the executive summary format referencing, you know, footnoted things or, you know, and some kind of, you know, additional information, you can find it here.
Right. But again, you know, for anybody at a high level, once you get beyond one page, the eyes start to glaze over.
Right.
And a lot of the, you know, between the technical alphabet soup gobbledygook and the other things, for somebody who's not familiar, it takes a long time to get up to speed. It
was pushing the limits for me too, so wouldn't feel bad if people groaned at the end of this. So yeah, I really appreciate a one-page summary if you can put that together. I've been a little overworked lately, so
Right. Well,
Uh,
again, I'm
we need to
before.
keep the Grim Reaper away from you.
By the way, a side note: there's been another death in the family, so I have to run Sunday to a funeral in Connecticut. I just can't believe it. So that'll be 12 funerals this year for us.
Oh boy.
Unbelievable. Uh, anyway, it's been kind of a stressful few weeks here. Okay, with that, I'm going to draw to close on the bead challenge, and just move down in terms of digital equity implementation plan. Just once again, there is some noise, and I haven't seen any activity that there will be some kind of a digital equity coalition that will form to talk about best practices for implementing digital equity, spending the small grants that the towns are getting, et cetera, and maybe going for larger grants from whatever is left over after BEAD is there. But I have not seen any activity at all on that. Keep our ears to the ground.
Bob,
John.
were our suggestions forwarded to the board yet? I mean, I saw
Oh,
two
yes.
versions. Okay, so
They are forwarded. Yeah. And the next question is, when can the board go and take a look at those? But that's not really urgent.
It's on the radar. It's on the radar. We'll get through
Right.
fall town meeting and then I'll push for a little more having it as an agenda item.
Okay. The next is the Technology Council, Cape Cod Technology Council. There was a meeting of the Infrastructure Committee yesterday, and both representatives, Ellen Goodman, Mark Goodman from Comcast and Ellen Cummings from Verizon was on. Just here, once again, just to recap, Verizon got a lot of Gap Networks Round 1 funds, and they have funds to complete the unserved and underserved service in Falmouth, in Sandwich, Mashpee, and I don't know about Wareham, but I've heard they also have that for they have activity in Wareham. So Ellen Cummings said that they are in fact going to increase the capacities at what I call wirehouses, the Depot Road co-location facility, the Sandwich Road co-location facility at the border of Bourne and Sandwich, to be able to supply FiOS from those, and it's FiOS to the premises. FTTP is what they call it now instead of to the home. Okay, so that's going to be going forward. They're going to have the served and underserved, I should say, unserved and underserved, in place, connected by the end of 2026. And their intention is they will then finish the build out to every premise in those towns.
With some caveats.
Well, yeah, but what I would like to do for the next meeting or a subsequent meeting, and there's no rush on this, is entertain a motion for the select board to send a letter to Verizon and say, while you're rebuilding and expanding the capacities at those two co-location facilities, we would like you to consider providing enough capacity to serve the remaining parts of Bourne that FiOS does not now serve, which would be Sagamore Beach, and Katama-Pacasset.
Did you see? I missed it. The CO, as they call it, the office. Basically, did you say they were putting something on Depot Road or not? Because I thought you were just Sandwich different.
Well, there is one on Depot Road. Okay.
Right.
When we had put in the grant proposal to the Department of Revenue for a municipal line to come up and serve facilities in Pacasset, that's exactly it's 2.3 miles from the Pecasset, the current firehouse.
This is premature because they haven't won any grants in Bourne yet. So this might have to be for like down the road.
Well, having said that, that's not to say to serve necessarily to come out and lay the fiber out, but at least if they're upgrading right now under the grants that they have, now would be the time to make sure they have enough capacity to serve the rest, and remind them that, hey, we're here and we wrote letters of support, and we don't know whether you're in gap round 2, but if we are, or even if you aren't, make sure that at least those wire houses, those COs, have enough capacity potentially in the future to serve FiOS to the remaining parts of Bourne.
So just a question here. Bourne didn't get any money for unserved and underserved, so I'm not sure how how this conversation relates to those central offices.
Well, what she was saying is that they are going forward, and with their own investment, they are going to completely serve the other parts of those towns. Maybe
Right,
not
other towns.
Oh.
But having said those are going to be served out of the co-location facilities.
Not in Bourne.
So she danced around a lot, the stuff
Right.
there. So
Just to finish that, Bob, sorry, but each town has a co-location facility for that town, and so the reach of the depot road is only Pocasset and Katomet. So in order to serve Mashpee, they're going to have to serve that out of the Mashpee co-location facility.
Well, true. I'm only talking about the ones that are adjacent to Bourne and serve Bourne right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's about 10 miles from the colo. They can do roughly 10 miles from the colo.
Theoretically, yes.
And what she's talking about is probably the back hauls back to the office in Boston that they're upgrading. So they're basically taking the glass they got, putting bigger lasers on it, basically, so they have enough, and then some kind of switch that's capable of some kind of switch in the top of the rack that they can start adding line cards underneath. And so they are agreeing to do that on the unserved and underserved, and they are saying they would like to get everybody else, but they're not making any promises about when, what technology, rollout timing, anything. They're saying it will probably be fiber for the rest of them, but they don't know when. It could be 10 years, like someday. So they're working on the backhaul to Boston and the grant funded locations as first priority, and everybody else is to be seen, to be determined.
Right.
But
I was going to say, with all that said, coming back to your original point, Bob, I think I'm behind that whole idea that the select board ought to go to Verizon and say, let's keep going here. You've already been to part of Bourne. Can you please build out Sagamore and Katomet?
Yeah.
I think that Verizon's going to wait and apply for BEAD because we've made so many additions to the map, or attempting to, with the amount of CAIs we're trying to get approved. I think they'll make a play for BEAD, personally.
Right, but I don't know that we don't have to wait. I think the whole idea of pushing Verizon is right in the dead center of the kind of stuff we ought to be pushing the select board to do.
Right. Okay. Well, again, what I'm referencing is Ellen Cummins' statements, and with regard to Falmouth, she was heavily grilled by the Falmouth Net people who were on the call. So, Jed, the next time your future interactions with anybody in Falmouth, they had been pressing her, and they may have more information. So keep your ear to the ground there. But again, at least 2 of these COs are right on the border of Bourne, and from a business sense, it would make sense. They serve the telephone exchanges in Katomet from there, so it makes sense that they would serve the FiOS from there. They've got the building.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Power rack. They got everything they need.
I've talked to some Verizon technical consultants about the thought, because as Brian pointed out, you could go 5 or 10 miles from a CO, and basically you would be going beyond the CO boundaries that they've traditionally used for regular telephone service. But there's other, I guess, it's probably a combination of organizational inertia and some of the other back office construction that would make it hard for them to breach exchanges. In other words, trying to go into downtown Falmouth from Katomet could bring other issues into play, even though it has nothing to do with the laser technology.
I don't know where the other COs that serve Falmouth are. I'm sure there's others that
Oh,
are
downtown. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
In-
Oh, yeah, the big one downtown, right? Yeah,
Right.
and the same with regard to Mashpee.
Yep, yep.
you
We
know,
have a CSV of all of their locations, so we know where
Yep.
the COs are.
Yep.
Okay. Anyway, having said that, I'm sure they're looking at it and just say, we've got you have an eager future constituency here in Bourne waiting to apply for your FiOS service. So keep
Yeah.
us in mind. Remember, we supported your application for Gap Network 1. She did not know whether they recycled our approval letter for Gap Network 2. She said they did apply. Okay, and she didn't say where they were applying.
MBI issued a ruling they were allowed to, so they did.
Okay. Anyway, so we're supporting Gap Network 1 and Gap Network 2. Even if you don't get it, once you finish all of these using the federal grants, please keep us in mind. That's all we want to say. Okay, I'm going to table that for now, but we'll see as we get these grants come out or eligibility comes out. What they get and don't get, and then we'll just lobby to make sure they fill the gaps in. Okay, next item on the agenda is the Mass Broadband Coalition. There is a meeting coming up. I think it's today at 4 o'clock. I haven't checked, but nothing has gone on with that recently. Jed, liaison with other towns.
Yeah, so not a lot. Wellfleet and Truro have kind of gone dark. As I'd mentioned before, a little bit different situation in both towns, but in both cases, the commonality is they're sort of taking a step back to reevaluate the needs or even the purpose of the committees. Meanwhile, both select boards have no plans to discuss it in public. So who knows?
I have a data point on that. There was, I can't remember the lady's name. Heather from
Heather
Wellfleet
Doyle, yep.
was on the call, and Ellen Cummins mentioned that Wellfleet was one of the towns that is going to have served, underserved, and unserved, and she stated that they were going to build out the whole town with FiOS.
Cool.
Man.
And so the Wellfleet people were rah
Yeah.
rah rah. Okay, so
But they
my
don't
guess is
commit to the dates, so
Yeah,
gotta see what they do.
Yeah, so maybe that, I mean, it could be that they've completed what they came out to do, which was to build out the network at the beaches, and now they're just no reason to continue. I don't know. But anyway, so there's kind of nothing going on there. In Falmouth, there are no plans for the MLP to meet at this point. We know that CTC is working on that report. There was something stated in one of the meeting minutes that it won't be out in September. I guess there's still stuff going on with that. And I think they are also sort of taking a step back. They're probably going to wait for that report and then decide what to do. But the whole funding thing, I think, is really overshadowing what they do next.
Mm-hmm. Once again, if FiOS is true to their word and gives more specificity about when they're going to build out the whole town, their job is done. I mean, there's really no point in going forward. The same with Wellfleet.
Yep.
And if perchance we get that word from Verizon about Bourne, we may be all done.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Moving forward, next item I have on the agenda is revisions to the charge. I don't think we have anything. I think it's been approved. We're all set with regard to that, right?
Yep, they approved it.
Yep. Okay. So we're operating under that new charge right now. And the last item I have here is discussion of the executive summary, written and verbal reporting. Let me pull this up on my screen. I think this was a nice summary of that meeting, and I think that's the kind of thing that, in addition to formally filing the long form minutes, this is something that we could send on a a regular biweekly basis as an executive summary to the select board. Again, Anne Marie, what's your comments on that? Would that be received positively?
I think we lost her.
We lost her.
I do have one point. Brian brought up a very interesting legal decision, which I think it's incumbent upon us to notify briefly the select board that if they want to put in place any rules or zoning changes regarding the assembly of towers in the area, that they should do it now. And if what basically the ruling said, from what I understand, is if you make a rule that's so exclusive to towers, but it doesn't include other structures, it's not legal. So you have to, if you want to establish like an historic district, you have to say, look, structures above a certain height or of a certain type of construction will not be allowed or are required to be reviewed by the zoning board of appeals or whomever. Because otherwise you don't know the way property is selling around here. You just can't tell what's going to happen. And is somebody going to try to put up a cell tower in your backyard? You don't know. So I think that the board would.
And if any concealment items too, like, have to be in there, but it has to apply to all infrastructure. You can't just say towers have to be trees. All things of infrastructure have to be obscured.
Can I suggest we put that on as a agenda item for the next meeting or a future meeting?
Yeah.
Have a more extensive discussion of that. So that would be a recommendation to, I guess we start with the planning commission, to the select board, that they just notify the planning commission about what would we call it, a gap in the current bylaws.
Right. Just, they need to somehow approve some kind of a zoning bylaw that is broad enough to include towers, but it can't be exclusive to towers. It has to go across the board to any type of structures, as Brian pointed out. Because in other words, what they're saying is, if you're trying to just discriminate against this one use, that's not legal. If you're discriminating against all kinds of uses, then that might be legal. So yeah, towers could be. I mean, again, a few years ago, I wouldn't have even thought about it. But now, the way you see property selling around here, someone might be very tempted for whatever reason to, sell some plot of land to some tower company that may or may not violate zoning rules. I don't know what those zoning laws are exactly.
So
go ahead, John.
I was just going to interject a couple, just some related item is that pretty much all cell towers have to go through the Cape Cod Commission. I think there's a 35-foot max.
Yeah,
that automatically brings in
that's good.
Department for Determination of
DRI. Yes.
There's currently a couple already in the process for Falmouth right now, but anyway, so that's already a pretty thorough thing.
I wasn't aware of that. Thank you. Yeah.
So we should probably make them aware of the rule change so they can be sure their current process is still legal under the new ruling.
Yeah.
Once again, Brian, who had come out with that new ruling? Is that state or federal?
Federal.
Yeah.
A bunch of telecom companies were unhappy with every town telling them, no, you can't build a tower, and challenged it.
Okay. I think conformance with those new rulings is something we ought to at least make them aware of. By the way, one other rumored cell phone tower is next to the railroad tracks and back of the ball fields in Pecasset, kind of looming over the golf course on one side and the Windsong neighborhood on the other side. Just to let you know, but nothing's been filed with planning at all on that. So somebody asked me in another venue where that was going. Okay. But with regard to this executive summary, I'm going to presume that that's okay with everybody, and we'll get Wendy to transmit that to the select board and say, to aid in your review of our minutes, here's an executive summary of the minutes and the detailed minutes also, and the detailed minutes would be posted.
Mhm.
Is that okay with everybody?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, and I don't, we're already filing this right now, and this is just an excerpt from it, so I don't think there's any real problem here. Okay, Anne Marie is gone. So, Jed, do you want to pull up the agenda for the next meeting?
Yeah. So this is basically the previous one. I think we can take this out, right? We don't need to discuss this anymore.
Right.
What's that? Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Revision
revision
of
of charge, right? So
Yeah.
then that's what's left here. I didn't hear any new topics.
No, I don't think there are any. Again, again, the BEAD challenge. The big thing is going to be review and wordsmith this draft letter to go to the select board.
Okay.
I'll work again with if Brian can break the technical stuff up into footnotes. I will try to craft something that we can merge the two together.
Okay. All right. So we're good with this.
Very good. Okay, at 10 a.m. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll yeah.
Jed moves. Did I hear John second?
Brian seconded it, I think.
Brian seconded. Okay. Just a vote right now. John,
Aye.
Jed,
Aye.
Brian,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Okay. Folks, thank you very much.
All right. See you later.
Bye-bye.
Recording stopped.